Okay. Now, Perek Gimel. Derech Hashem b'minhu enushi. Ramchal, after talking about before, he spoke about what the purpose of the Bria is, what the purpose of creation is, and when the Hashem set it up and so on and so forth, He's now going to talk about the major character. Who was the major character of all this? Everything that was set up, the purpose, why he did it, and so on and so forth, who is God, and all that. Now we come to the major character. Who was all this intended for? So obviously it's man, which he's now going to talk about. So, he says, Kvar Zecharnu, we mentioned, of course, that Adam is the Bria, is the creation that was created to be Dovuk in Rebbeinu Shalom. So he singles out Adam, not Jew, important to make a distinction. Doesn't say Heyois Yehudi, doesn't say that. It says Adam. A lot of people don't realize that. The creation wasn't made for Jews, it was made for man. It happens to be that man had a certain purpose, and ultimately the Jew took it over. So in that sense, it was made for man. But even that it wasn't made for. Who was it made for? And I always ask the question, which is very important. Was Adam Rishon Jewish? It's an interesting question. And what's the answer to that? Was he Jewish?
Of course.
Of course.
He was involved in Tikkun Olam.
Well, I didn't ask that. This is the way I asked the question.
They say that's big.
Did Moshe Rabbeinu wear shleimal?
I'm saying that you don't get filter vision as a camera.
Was Adam Rishon Jewish?
Definitely not.
Definitely not.
Absolutely.
Wait. Let's take a vote here.
He said definitely.
All those who say yes, was Adam Rishon Jewish? Those people who say yes, please raise your hands. Oh wow. Those people who say no, I assume it's everybody else.
Come on.
Ellie,
I'm
you're strapping
my granites.
What?
Your father said he was a Knife granites.
Okay, Adam Rishon was not Jewish. Wasn't Jewish. Even though everybody would love to think he's Jewish. What do you say? The what?
Buddhist.
Buddhist?
That was free and everything, but he ate from it instead of just sitting there.
Oh, the Buddhist, that's what you're saying. Because the Ramchal says, Adam, Habriya, Ois Habriya, Hanivreis Lidovid Bo Yisborach. Adam Rishon was clearly the one that was the object of creation to achieve the ultimate purpose of creation, which of course is Dvekus. And the reason why Adam was not Jewish, simple, is because the Bria was not created for the Jew. It was created for Adam, man. But man does have a title. What is the title of man? And for that he was created. So you cannot apply the title Yehudi to Adam, but you can call him something else. What is that? You know what it is? The term is called Yisrael. Adam was Yisrael. He wasn't Jewish, but he was Yisrael. Therefore, I always like to get around. Therefore, Rosh Hashanah, which is the creation of Adam Rishon, is an Israeli holiday.
What's the difference in Yisrael
I will explain. But it's an Israeli holiday. So it has nothing to do with Judaism, if you think about that. Even though we're the ones who, of course people are disturbed by that. But it's not a Jewish holiday. It is an Israeli holiday. What does that mean? Well, first of all, you have the Medrash that says B'Shvil Yisrael, Rashis, right? B'Yisrael, right? Because it says Rashis, and Yisrael is called Rashis. The Torah is called Rashis, right? That the world was created for Rashis, which is Yisrael. It doesn't say that the world was created for Yehudi, Jews, or Ivri, because the real name of a Jew is called an Ivri, not a Yehudi. Yehudi is a later term that you call Jews. But it's really Ivri, Hebrew. And it says Yisrael. Adam Rishon was Yisrael. Why? What's the difference? The difference between a Yisrael and a Yehudi or an Ivri, even though now they can be found in the same person, okay? Yisrael means a person that has a certain type of neshama and therefore can do certain things. What does that mean? A Yisrael is somebody that has a neshama that is connected to every dimension of reality. And since there are 5 dimensions of reality, right? There are 5 enormous. From the bottom we say nefesh, then ruach, then neshama, then chaya, and then yechidah. Those are the 5 parts of the neshama. Each one is connected to a specific place. The nefesh is connected to where Olam Asiyah, which is this world. Okay? The ruach is connected to Yitzira. The neshama, which is an individual term, is connected to Bria. Chaya is connected to Atzilus, and Yechidah is connected to Adam Kadmon. Therefore, since a person is connected to all the Adams, his actions will create a difference in all the Adams. It will either bring a tikkun to the Adams or a kilkul to the Adams. Which means, therefore, the concept of Yisrael simply means an individual that can effect another dimension beyond the physical. That's all it means. Means he has the power or the influence where he can actually create changes for good or for bad in another dimension. Okay? That's a Yisrael. Adam Rishon was there for Yisrael because he could do that. Okay. Now, if Adam Rishon was Yisrael and not a Yehudi or an Ivri, right? Then what was Cain and Hevel? All there. And all the other guys coming after him. And the answer is, they all were Adam. They all were Yisrael. They all had the power of Tikkun or Kilkul. You know what I'm saying? And that's why ultimately, if you think about it, why they were able to destroy the world. The door of Noach, for instance, from Shes and Noach, and then the door HaMabel song, the door HaFloga and all that, right? Since they were able to do the Tikkun, what they did is they were Mach of the Bria. They destroyed the world. You see. And therefore, all of them were Yisrael. They were all Adam and they were all Yisrael. None of them were Hebrew. Avraham Avinu was the first Hebrew or Ivri. He is the first one that combined the concept called Yisrael with the concept called Hebrew. And an Ivri is a nationalistic term. It's a nation. But it doesn't define man. You see. So man always was a Yisrael. And then Avraham Avinu, who was an Ivri, that was his individual status. You know, Ivri is from the Eva Hanor, because it came from across the what do you call it, Orkazdim, which whatever the river Euphrates or whatever it is, you know, the Persian Gulf. That's where Orkazdim was. He came from beyond the river, Eva, and therefore he was called a Hebrew. But in any case, the main idea is that Adam Rishon was Israel, but not an Hebrew, not an Ivri.
But then can you say every person existing now, if Adam, the first progenitor, has Yisrael in them?
No. Because I mentioned before, because the Rosham took away the koyach of Adam to be a Yisrael. And he left it with the Jews.
By Matan Torah?
Who?
By Matan Torah?
Oh, he called Yaakov Yisrael.
Yeah, and by Matan Torah he attempted to restore it, but they didn't want it.
Bris Ben Abisar, right?
What?
That's it. It's like Bris Ben Abisar.
Yeah, the Bris Ben Abisar established Avraham Avinu as the only one who would be a Yisrael, and everybody else was.
But he didn't use the word Yisrael until Yaakov.
Yes, because even when he gave it to Avraham Avinu, he wouldn't make the name permanent unless Avraham Avinu passed the test. What was the test? What does the Russian really want? The essential test was not just that Avraham Avinu himself would be what? Would be Shomer, whatever, Mitzvot or whatever, so, right? Whatever he had. But that he would pass it. L'man yitzave es bonav achrav. That was the test. Well, would he continue it down? And therefore, after 3 generations, which is a chazaka, so therefore Yaakov was a third. So Yaakov was called Yisrael. And even he wasn't called Yisrael until after he came back from, Lavan and so on, because that was his test and so on. But it was only after 3 generations, right, finalized that they did the job, that they can now have a permanent term called Yisrael. So therefore, Yaakov Avinu was the only and the first one that was called Yisrael openly, and that's that, and so on. But even Avram wasn't called Yisrael, although he was a Yisrael, but the bond wasn't made permanent. That's the concept of Avram. A lot of people don't know this. They think that, well, Jews, but then they're always bothered with the fact that, wait a minute, it makes no sense. You know what I'm saying? Why was Adam, Adam, you don't find Adam was called anywhere a Yehudi, a Jew, you know? Anyway, Ramchal clearly, you see that, because he says, hey, Yois Adam. Man, doesn't talk about Adam as being Jewish. Very important concept. In any case, so Adam Rishon, he's the main one that would be a crave for dvekus. And in the end, that's all there is. There's man and God, period. That's it. You know? And maybe that's why the Torah begins with a base. Why the Torah begin with a base? You know, there's a Medrash, Baruch, and so on. There's a base starts with Baruch, and the Aleph starts with whatever, and so on. So therefore, because the Torah starts with a base, why? Because in the end, existence will only have two beings, really. One will be the Rabban Shalom, and two will be man or Adam. That's it. Who? No. Malachim are not the intended purpose of creation. They are nothing more than intermediaries or functionaries. It means they do the shlichus. They're workers. A malach is fundamentally an employee. Funny way of looking at it, but that's what he is. It's glorified, I mean, a tremendous kedusha. I mean, don't get me wrong. The what?
A drone.
Glorified.
A drone.
A drone.
The civil service workers.
Yeah, I hate to refer to malachim as civil service. Doesn't sound too good. But a malach is fundamentally a functionary. He functions as an intermediary. That whatever the Rebbe wants, they all do Eiser Tzona, they do as well. But the Malach is not the purpose of creation, and therefore he never changes. A Malach has no influence other than what the Rebbe is mitzaveh him, he commands him to do it. Okay, fine. Other than that, no. And all Malachim are stationary; they never go up or down because they're not capable of any kilkul unless they become human. You know, which happened interesting at a certain time.
Don't they petition and try to persuade Hashem? Isn't that a certain degree of free will? Or
No, they don't. No, they don't. They don't.
Don't
They don't.
give them the Torah, they're going to ruin it. It's not a...
No, well, obviously they put in their plea when they had Moshe Rabbeinu and so on and so forth, you know.
You do find by Achav and Novis that the
what?
Malach, they got sheets and pulsing of by Achav and Novis.
Yeah?
The Ruach, the Ruach that came.
Ah, yeah.
It was a lying Ruach.
But, well, that's interesting to consider, you know, when they petitioned the Rebbe Hashem, or they went against Moshe Rabbeinu and said, well, what are you doing with the Torah? We should have it, you know. But in the end, Moshe Rabbeinu would tell him, hey, listen, you know, what are you going to do with the Torah? It's not for you anyway. It's made for man, you know, and the way Torah is expressed now is it's expressed as it's a physical expression. Mitzvahs are physical, in the sense that you cannot do a mitzvah in the ruchnis the way you need to do it here. You know, le'sigzol is le'sigzol. There's no such thing as gzeil and shemayim, because none of you own anything, and so on, you know. So clearly, if the Torah expresses itself only through a physical way, then obviously it's not intended for that, and so on, you know. I mean, does that mean Torah cannot be observed in Shemayim? It could. Because for every physical mitzvah, there is a ruchnistic counterpart. What is that ruchnistic counterpart? There's an or. There's some type of an or, a force that represents the mitzvah. So in a certain sense, a malach could say, well, we want to be privy to that. We want that or. You know what I'm saying? But what are they going to do with it? They're going to have the or. So what? Now what? There's no nominate. There's no tikkun. You know what I'm saying? There's no... they don't do anything, even if they had that or. They would just receive it and enjoy it, so to speak. You know, experience it. But there's nothing beyond that. You know, man can not only experience it, the man can also, because he has Bechira, as we'll see, he can remove the shame, Namlik Sufa, which I once talked about, and so on, whatever, and so on. Anyway, so the Ramchal clearly says that the man is the being for Dvekas. There's nobody else. Okay, the he, and therefore, because of this, man has to be put in a certain situation, which is Mutelis being Shlemus and Chesronos. A person has to be put in a position of being mechusa, deficient, and perfect. In other words, the Baruch Hashem has to create a state of chesan, deficiency. Why? Because the Baruch Hashem wants shlemus. But since he wants perfection, whatever that is, clearly he wants an Adam to do it, to become perfect. So he obviously has to create a task for him. And that task is deficiency. And what the task would be is to remove the deficiency and become perfect. So therefore, man is placed between shlemus and chesronos, not a malach. Malach is perfect. He's perfect in whatever he has to be. He's there. An Adam is not. Okay. Clearly, that man has to be given a situation which is choseh, and therefore there has to be a possibility that he can achieve shlemus, perfection, whatever that is, and he has to be able to be clean of that shlemus. These are all fundamental requirements that the Baruch Hashem does in order to allow the experiment to proceed, or the project. Let's use the word project. This is really a project of God. That's really what it is. And in order to allow it to proceed, he has to create certain conditions. And these conditions allow for the project to happen and to proceed. Okay? So therefore, there has to be a chesan, there has to be shlemus, and therefore, and this Adam has to be placed between, and so on. What is the chesan? When you really think about it, what is the deficiency? And the answer to that would be, what is a deficiency?
Adam.
Who?
He's placed far away from God.
Yeah, in that sense, yes.
Disconnect.
He's disconnected, yeah, from the Rebbeinu Shalom. You know? What's the chesan about that? You know? Why is that a chesan? You walk outside, you ask a lot of people out there, and they don't even know what you're talking about. As far as they're concerned, this is fabulous. You know, this world is great. What is that problem here? Are we missing something? You know?
Water skiing.
Water skiing, yeah. Jet skiing. What's the problem, you know? You know, the guys who walk around who are on their 150-yard feet for yachts.
Getting them ready.
And you tell them, by the way, you're mechusa. So what, are you crazy? You're mechusa because I got the yacht, you don't have it. You know, excuse me, who is mechusa here? You know? So that's the question here. What are we talking about? What are mechusa? You know, it's nice. It sounds nice theologically, it sounds nice. But like, what in the world does it refer to? You know, like I say, you know, most of the world don't believe they're mechusa at all. They think you're mechusa. And you know, you look at a yeshiva guy, goes around for schlepped clothing, broken down car, you know, his 93 Toyota, he's driving a Toyota, you know what I'm saying, you know, he barely has, doesn't have too much food, so forth, you know. His kids hardly have shoes, and so, you know, you look at Eretz Yisrael, never what's going on there, and so, you know. And these are the guys, they're calling everybody else mechusa. Like, you know, excuse me, something here doesn't make sense, you know. So that's the question. What is the chesan, really? What is the deficiency that man has? And you said it right. It's vague. Why is being disconnected from the Baruch Shalom chesan? Why? That's the question. And therefore, the opposite of that is, well, if I'm connected to him, why is that shalom? Why is that shlemus? You know? I don't think most people even have a clue to this. You know? Forget about the fact that, like I said, the guy's driving around his 93 Toyota and he's saying, I'm shalom, you're mechusa, you know? You guys laughs at the guys, you know, so, you know. I'm not even talking about that. But, the question is, why is it dvekas to Hashem? Why is that shlemus? You know? What makes it Sholem?
He's showing.
What does that mean, Sholem? All you've done is you've basically gone from one mystery to another. Okay, it's a journey of mysteries. Yeah. There's nothing clear here, and we need to have clarity.
You have to cause your own existence.
No, that doesn't give you shlemus. That removes the embarrassment of somebody else giving you the shlemus. Like you're the master of the shlemus. All it does, it makes you the master of your own shlemus. But what is the shlemus? That is the question. You need to have that. That's a fundamental understanding. You know what I'm saying? Hashem, yeah. Yeah, I mean, no one's debating the fact that it's shlemus. No, that's not the issue here. The issue is, what does it mean to be Sholem? Which, of course, is achieved by Dveikus to the Marshal. No question about that. But what does it mean? You know? I'll tell you what I think it means. What is the greatest chesron of all? Let's see if we can solve it by reasoning. What is the greatest chesron of all, as far as we know in this world? What is it?
Death.
Who?
Death.
Who?
Death.
Death. Right on. Death. You cannot be more mechusa than that. All right? You're dead. That's about it. That is the sum total of the greatest chesron.
I was going to say that's the problem because that's something.
No. Again, you're too religious for us. This is the problem. You know, you're using religious terms, and it's the same thing. What does it mean to be attached to God? So the answer is, well, that's not Hester. That's how Oras. No, but again, same problem. Now what? So what? You see, it's just another. You're just restating the problem. So therefore, what's the greatest chesron? Is to be dead. Am I right? Yes. The problem is a lot of people are walking around dead and they don't know it. You know? Interesting.
They don't even know they're mechusar, they know they're dead.
Yeah, okay. Well, okay, but the question is, why is death the greatest chesron? Why? So he's dead, so what?
You can't get closer to Hashem.
Can't achieve.
You can't grow.
You see, it's all religious terms here. I don't want religion here.
Because when you're dead, you cease to exist.
Beautiful. It's a cessation of existence.
Really? I thought you said this after death.
It is a cessation of existence. Listen, if you don't exist, you can't do anything. Right? There's nothing going on. You know what I'm saying? It is the greatest state of inactivity ever known. Sounds funny. But it is. It's a complete inactivity, passivity, non-functioning that you can achieve. Why? Because you're dead. You know, because you're basically dead, you know.
Hard to call it achievement.
What was that?
It's hard to call it achievement.
This answers a very important question. There's a lot of people out there that believe that Yeshu's coming back. Second coming, I don't know if you're familiar with Christianity, I hope you're not. But there's all concept called the second coming, which of course they had to invent because the guy never could have showed up in the first place. You know? So I mean, you know, how you talking, as they say. So there's a concept called the second coming. You know, it's but the problem is, you know, and I believe, by the way, why did the Pope go by the millennium? Not this guy, the one before him. What was that? What's his name again? John Paul, whatever the guy's name is. So he went to the Kaisel. Remember him? He was the first Pope ever to go to a Pope Kaisel.
Oh, Jean Paul.
Ever tell you, John Paul?
2. Yeah.
Yeah. So you know why did he go to Kaisel? Yeah. Did I ever tell you my theory? Because they were all waiting for 2,000 years. For 2,000 years, and the biggest kasha is if you look at the New Testament, which I hope you look at, you see clear that they were what's called apocalypticists. They believed that the end was near. In fact, Yeshu says himself, I will come to you, the kingdom of heaven, to you guys while you're all alive. They clearly believed that he would return in their time. What's called an apocalypse means the end. They were apocalypticists because they believed that he would come back while everybody, these guys were alive. That's what they believed. You see? So the murder kash is, where is he? See, so you got 2,000 years, it's a millennium, 2,000 years have passed, and the guy's not, where is the guy? So what's the Pope do? So the Pope had a murder machshava. I never told you this?
No. I mean, the guy is dead, really. So
Wait, so the Pope had a murder machshava.
he still exists.
Wait. The answer, we know why he never came. We know why he came, because he's dead. And the dead don't do anything. That's it. It's the greatest state of non-functioning ever known. So of course he's not going to come back because he's dead. Okay, but they haven't figured that out yet. Anyway, so here's the Pope. Pope had Gewaldig Machshava. He said, here's what I'll do. You know, why Taki isn't he coming back? Why didn't he come back? You know why? Because he figured, because God is angry with the Catholics, Christians. You know why? Because they destroyed too many Jews. Because even their murdered at the beginning was all Jews. Yeah, because that's what kills them, by the way, that they believe in the Torah. And then he came along and changed it, whatever.
That's why they have the Pope's Jews in
That
Rome.
Pope,
Yeah, so because they would be, because Yeshua said, you will testify when I come back. So that's, you got to keep a group of Jews alive. So there should be what's called the, what do you call them, the Pope's Jews, yeah. Because you have to, in Rome, you know, and wow, imagine being potter from all the Yisurim, the suffering and all that. Why? So that they should be alive to testify when he comes back. So he figured, of course, the reason why he didn't come back, because God is mad. He's mad. How do you do this to my kids? Okay, you know, you're angry at them and so on because they rejected, you know, him and so on and so forth. How do you slaughter them for 2,000 years? So he figured, what's he going to do? He's going to, hedge his bets. What's he going to do? He's going to the Kosel, and he's going to pray and say, God, forgive us. And that's why he wrote that. We have been excessive to the Jews. Because he was hoping that the Banshlam would then say, okay, not Banshlam, Yeshu. You know, he's going to come back, he'll send his kid back, right? And so on, you know, and because of that, of course it didn't work.
He's
Right?
still dead.
He's still dead. Because somehow they don't get it. The dead don't do anything. Anyway, so that's the greatest chasson of all is death. If that's the greatest chasson, what's the greatest perfection? Life. Or existence. That's what it is. The greatest gift that you can ever get is to be. There's nothing beats it. Because if you are, you can do everything. If you ain't, you can't do anything. That's the concept. When a person has dvekus to the Bereshit, they exist truly. We don't know what that means, believe it or not. We don't know what it means to exist truly. But there is a thing called true existence. The problem is, in order to do it, you need to connect with the source of existence per se. And the way the Bereshit manifests himself in this Bria is pure existence. Like I once said, God doesn't have existence. He is existence. Which means that's why Yud Kei Vav Kei is his name. Yud Kei Vav Kei comes from the verb lihiyos, to be. You know what I'm saying? To be. And therefore the Bereshit is. That's the greatest thing you could say about him, is that he is. He really is. We don't know what that means, really. So therefore, the more you're dovik in him, the more your existence is verified, and so on. And that's what it is, ultimately. Now, the quality of your existence in terms of what can you do, fine. So the Bereshit will decide what he wants you to be able to do. You know, and in Olam Haba, what you can do is incredible. But if you don't exist, it's a non-starter. So therefore, what Dvekus does, it will lead to true existence eternally. Can't beat that. You know, what is the greatest daiga man has?
Fear of death.
Fear of death, and we never lose it. When instantly you wake up in the morning, you open your eyes, there it is. When will we pass on? That fear of mortality haunts man till the day he dies. There's no way to get rid of it, because man is mortal, and so on, you know. To be in an existence where there is no fear of mortality is beyond belief. It's to know that you will exist for all time. And when 100 quadrillion years pass. You know that. It's not even the beginning. Because 100 quadrillion years is zero compared to infinity or eternity. So, wow, And that's the greatest fear, is the fear of death, and so on,
And how do you connect to the source of existence?
Oh, so therefore, you need to do His will, His Ratzon. He tells you how to do that. Do the mitzvahs. You see. Why does a mitzvah connect you to the source? Really? Why? Okay, so I observe Shabbos. Now what? So what? And the answer to that is what the premise of a mitzvah is. A mitzvah is fundamentally your statement that you believe the Hashem exists and He rules the Bria. Mida connected Mida. You believe I exist, guess what? You will exist with me. In other words, I will actually fulfill your belief. You believe I am, you are going to enjoy the I am. It's measure for measure, you see. And essentially all mitzvahs do that. All of them ultimately testify belief that Hashem is, and therefore you will also be is. You see what I'm saying? That's the bottom line of all mitzvahs. Okay? So therefore the greatest chesaron is what? The greatest chesaron is, in many ways, to be, right? But it's not the same way we will be in Olam Haba, The greatest chesaron, of course, is not to be, or almost not to be. And the greatest shleimus, therefore, will be existence itself. You can't get more shalom. That is the greatest shleimus
What
of
does he mean
all.
when he says that the aim is to create you with a chesaron? What
Yeah.
did he create you with? What does
That you
mean?
don't really exist.
The chesaron means
Even though we don't understand what that means.
Chesaron in existence.
you mean
What?
he created.
Chesaron in existence.
Yes, it's a
But the
chesaron.
clothing is the chesaron. It's not a personal. It's a breathing chesaron. Every man.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that chesaron is a nivra, is a breathing chesaron. Yeah, yes, yeah. Nobody knows what it is to exist. Nobody. Malachim do not exist. When I say that, of course we think we exist, but it's not the same. Our problem is we don't know what existence is. As far as we're concerned, you either is or you ain't.
We are very much alive.
There is no other, we don't know an alternative. Existence to us is what's called a dichotomy. Either you are or you are not. There's no in between here. Existence doesn't have degrees, does it? It's not you get 5 degrees of existence.
I mean, if you have a lot of money, maybe you could exist a little better.
Well,
I mean,
no,
we haven't been able
you
to
exist the
agree.
same, except you enjoy your existence better.
Yeah.
It's a qualitative thing,
So
that's
what
all. You enjoy your existence more, but you cannot exist more than the
Where's
next
the
guy.
chesaron? Where's the chesaron how? In English.
It's very...
Where is it how?
Oh, because it's... The problem is we don't know what existence really is. If we don't know where it's chal. In other words, the only way we'll ever know is in Olam Haba, when you have the shlemus, right? Then you're going to remember what you were. You're going to say that? You call that existence? We don't know because we don't know what true existence is. We don't know. You know what, there's an interesting raya from Chazal. I always call it a raya. Because there's Ayin Le'Roah, so it says, Kol Masha Tzofan Sadikim. You know what I'm saying? They spoke about Yemot HaMashiach and so on. Everything that is stored up for the righteous. You know what I'm saying? The Nevi'im speak about Yemot HaMashiach, But I should say, what's Masha Tzofan Tzadikim, but what is stored up for the righteous? No, the Mahabo, Ayin Le'Roah. Now that language to me is inappropriate. It shouldn't say the eye has never beheld. It should say the brain has never conceived. We cannot conceive that. It should say the moyach le masik. Right? The teretz is we can be masik, but we've never seen it. We can masik what existence is, right? Because we experience whatever we do. You know what I'm saying? But we've never seen what real existence is. It's not a chason in hasoga. It's a chason in experience. That's why it doesn't use the word moyach le masik. It says ayin le'roso. The eye has never beheld, and that's true. We've never beheld because we've never experienced it. We've never seen ourselves, anybody else for that matter. You see. So therefore, it's funny, you talk about existence, it sounds philosophical, Then you ask yourself, where's the Kedusha? Yeah, there's Kedusha, there's being, Tzius. Is Tzius existence, Kedusha? What is it? You know what I'm saying? But the truth in the end is that the existence you feel is real. Why? Because you are connected to the Rebbeinu Shalom. It's not just that you are as an aspect of God. That's Kedusha. Now we don't know what that is. We don't know what that is. It's not merely the cold term called existence. Well, you are, now what? You know what I'm saying? No, it's the existence of God. That's what you are. Now we don't know what that is. You can't, can't describe what I don't know. But it's not merely that you are. It's that you are the existence of God. That's what you are. That's Vegas. We don't know what that is.
So
anyway.
In a shared Kiddushanu, you get to some Tzivana. What's different there than before you do the mitzvah? Like what spiritually is different from at 4 o'clock, then you're doing the mitzvah at 4:02. So in the mitzvahs we become holy.
Yeah.
The idea of holiness.
Yes.
What transformed in that moment from prior to before you did the mitzvah?
When you do a mitzvah,
what is that?
when you do a mitzvah, you tap into a certain. When you do a mitzvah, you tap into a certain awe. Now you may or may not experience that awe. Our problem. Why is it we don't experience the awe? Really, you do a mitzvah. Let's say you really did it right. Really had the kavanas and so on. Now what? How come you don't feel anything? You know what the answer to that is? Because there's 2 dinim here, as they say, right? There's the first din of having the all come to you, and there's the second din of the zoyamo. Why don't you get rid of all the garbage you have? You see, if you have a keli that's a 5-gallon keli, and all of a sudden, and it's filled, right? And all of a sudden, and it's filled with junk. Yeah. And then all of a sudden you take, a huge pot of gold, whatever, if you want, you just pour in this keli. What's going to happen? Just spill right on the side. Why? It's not a chesron in the sino. It's a chesron in the Kabbalah. That's our problem. We don't have the proper kelim to makabel this. Now, does it mean that therefore we don't have the awe? No. It just means that we cannot be makabel this awe now. That's what it means. Every time you do a mitzvah, there's an asina. There's a matana and a sina, but there is no Kabbalah or very little. So if that's the case, you know what I'm saying? You know when you see this? A Novi. We think a Novi, he just sat down and there it was, No. Do you know how much a Novi had to work to become a Novi? First of all, a Novi had to be incredibly, as a whole shurim on this that I once gave. A Novi had that precious. Had that incredible precious from what? From Geshem, from Gashmias. I'm not talking about Chet. I'm talking about, the guy puts down a fabulous steak. You know what I'm saying? And there's no Avera. And you make the bracha, Sha'achlin Yevedvoy. Quick, knife, fork. Right? Now, what does that mean? You didn't do a Chet. Really? You made the bracha, What's the problem? You are enjoying Gashmias in a way that is not appropriate. You know what I'm saying? And it's not just enjoying Gashmias. You are enjoying the Gashmias. There's the you. There's a whole concept called you. You are now dedicated to fulfilling your own pleasures. But you shouldn't. Moed Kodesh is only to the Rebbeinu Shalom. You see from the Siddur Shalom. So there's a you and the Geshem. There's 2 different dinim here. You know what I'm saying? But the concept here is that Geshem, you got to remove Kashmirs. The second he had to remove was chet. Because chet is an evil, so to speak, and that would introduce zoyama, tumah. Then he had to be tor, not tomei. And then he had to work on his midas. You don't realize what a Navi had to do. And that's why you had a whole yeshiva of Naviim. You know what I'm saying? You had the yeshiva. You register. It would take you years to do this. Why did a Navi have to do all that? Why did a Navi have to be Torah, work on his midas, avoid chatoim, and avoid his geshem? Why? And the answer is, I'm not even talking about what he did to become a Navi. Now what? You know why? Keli. You got to clean out the Keli. That's the problem. It's not a chasson in the sino. It's a chasson in Keli. That's why we don't feel much. So therefore, whatever we did do is stored somewhere else until the Keli is nizdakach, becomes purified.
What's the notion that the Adam is chasarn, or it's the Bria that's chasarn? What do you say?
The Bria, because it says v'hi hamuteles ben hashlemus v'achesrenes. Yeah, but the Bria is Adam. There's no difference here. Adam is the Bria.
There could be the student is the Bria chasarn, so therefore it allows for fixing, and then the Adam also is a chasarn and allows for his growth.
The real idea is it's not. It's hainuchach. The Bria's chasson is a manifestation of Adam's chasson. That's why Adam is the Bria. When a man does a mitzvah, he's misaken something in the Bria. You see why? Because that's him. That is him. You see, we think there's a Bria outside of us. It's funny, even physicists today are coming to an incredible realization. I don't know if you realize you don't realize what's going on in the world of physics. You know what I'm saying? Physicists realize something which is astounding. And they don't know what to do with this, in a certain sense. It's mystical. Physics now feels that there is no Bria. It's all consciousness. Our consciousness creates the Bria.
Which field of physics? I mean, where in physics? Where in physics does it manifest?
The latest to understand what's going on is the concept of consciousness. That is consciousness that makes everything. They have all kinds of, for instance, a light. I'll give you an example. Okay. If you take a light, the question is a light a particle or is it a wave? Okay, is it a little particle, like a little, body, right? Or is it a wave? It's not a particle. It's actually a wave in something which nobody knows. A wave is a form that something else assumes. Nobody knows. So there's an experiment. It's called a slit experiment that you can do. Okay? You send a light wave through a slit and you see what it looks like. You put a board behind it and you see what it looks like. If it was a wave, it would make a certain pattern, and if it was a particle, it would make another type of pattern on the board behind the slit. This has been tried 1,000 times, So you put a lamp and a light wave goes through it. Okay, The question is, how's it going to go through? The incredible thing is that if in the mind of the guy who made the experiment, he wants to see if it's a wave, it comes out as a wave. And if the guy wants to see if it's a particle, it comes out as a particle. It's two distinct patterns. This doesn't make sense. How can how can it be told in your consciousness? What is this?
You heard of it?
Oh yeah, this is only one of them. There are many things, In other words, they actually see that the results of something depends on. Yeah, it's subjective. But how can reality be subjective
How could that be?
and not objective? Makes no sense.
Right.
There's got to be an objective reality. Who cares what you think? But they see, and they've tried this hundreds of times.
What's the pshat? So what's the pshat?
Is that light knows is a manifestation of your consciousness. So therefore, if you want A, it'll be A. That's how you explain it. If you want B, it'll be
people are
B.
staring at
You're not beaming it out of your head. You're not beaming the light out of your head.
That's it. Two people are looking.
Yeah, they don't become too dinim. That can't happen.
I don't know all the ins and outs of this, but this stuff has been done so many times, is that
Rabbi Kessin, you hear what he said? It doesn't work with an ATM machine.
You know what I feel? When you're standing by the water,
You don't understand? Forget the ATM. I wish we'd work with the lottery. Who cares about the
you can
ATM?
see whatever you want.
Why? My consciousness would, okay. I mean, he'll pull up my lottery number. That's what I really wish it would work. But
When you're standing by the water at night with a moon, let's say, and you see the stream coming right to you, right? The little light from the top of the
Yeah.
water. The person next to you doesn't see that in the world. It's all based on your own optical.
He sees
yeah,
He
yeah.
sees it going that way, but you don't see any reality.
I want to tell you something. Listen,
It's a whole
there's a lot of
maybe.
protum and details, etc., etc. But the thinking is, into many, many people, is that the Bria is consciousness. That's how light knows. It doesn't do anything on its own. It needs you to think of what you want to do. And they have many rights for that. You know, I don't know, you know, there's, light starts out from a star, you know, and it travels, but I forgot exactly how, but whether it will go A or B depends on an observer that will see it 5,000 years later. Somehow the light knows what the guy who's looking at it will see or where he will be. I don't remember all the exact experiments, but there's a famous guy, John Wheeler, who was a Talmud of Einstein. I was one of the Gedolim, to use that word, you know. They are the Gedolim. These are the Gedolim of physics, you know. He held the whole world is consciousness. That's really what the bottom line is. Except nobody can explain it. Nobody can understand. What do you mean consciousness? What in the world is consciousness? What does that mean, you know? But it is. It's that all manifestations is consciousness. That's it. Whatever that means, you know. So therefore, how do I get onto this?
But can't
No,
you say
that's for the
reverse?
other
Zoom,
control.
you know,
No,
how you
the
feel.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
That's
So,
connected.
and that stims.
It's a ruchni signal.
In other words, the world is really a projection of our consciousness, and therefore the world is us. You see, it's not that we and then there's something outside of us. They even hold that reality is subjective, and so on. In fact, they hold, it's called the anthropic principle. Anthro means man, you know. They hold if man didn't exist, the universe wouldn't exist. The universe only exists because man's consciousness exists. And if man didn't exist, nothing would exist. I mean, that is so much in line with Yadus, it's ridiculous. It's incredible, you know, which is true. If Adam didn't exist, what's Bishvili Nevarim mean? Right? If Adam didn't exist, nothing would exist, which is true in Ruchnis, in Hashkafa, Mamish. That's why, you know, it's getting late. I'll give you one more example, okay? One more example. When you're a Baal on something, you own something, correct? Yes? So a guy can't come and steal it from you. It's a gzela. Yes? No, is that a legal idea? It's a legal, you know what a convention is? It's something we all agree on. Is that a legal, is ownership a legal convention? Means we all agree that you have exclusive rights to control this object. Therefore, you're called a Baal. Right? And if somebody goes and steals it, what does that mean? He's violating. But what's he violating really? He's violating a legal agreement. It's just legal. A legal thing isn't real. It's just what we agreed on. It's called a legal fiction or legal reality. Bias is a legal reality. Is it a real reality? No. There's nothing between you and the object you own. Yes?
No.
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 That's what you think. No. That object you own is an extension of self. You know where you see that? Interesting. By Negoyim. If a person speaks Lashon Hara, so the first thing that hits is what? His house. And then it hits his clothing. Then it hits his guf. That's the progression, right? There's Suras Abayas, Malbushim, and there's Suras of the guf. Yes? Why? Because the guy spoke Lashon Hara, so what do you want from the house? It's true he owns the house, but it's only a legal fiction. There's no real connection between the house other than that he owns it. And ownership is really where everybody agreed that what? That you own the house, so therefore nobody can take away your house. But the truth is no. When you take ownership, you connect, there's a true what's called ontological being. That house is you. Therefore, if an neshama gets ras, it's going to go to the outermost extension of you. Work its way inward. Clothing. Work its way inward to the guf. And then work its way inward to the neshama. Right? Shema pivlu shonai, shema mitzorais nafshoi. The taras is really on the nefesh. So why is it on the house? Because that is your nefesh.
So it says also nobody, the person's bias is going to come be made against them.
Because that's him.
Also,
Exactly. It's a moedic understanding.
That's what people are
It's a
like.
profound understanding that what we think is a legal concept, it's not legal. Legal means convention, we all agree. It's not. It's called ontological being. That's what it is. Gzeilu's being. You see? So when somebody steals, what does it say there? Om Rabbi Yochanan? Call a goizel pruta, kilo horigas nefesh. What? Goes nafsha. Why? Because that prut is me. You took a chunk out of me. You see? Of course it sounds like, horigas nefesh, because the guy says, now I'm going to pay my rent. But there's a much deeper meaning to all of this. You see? Therefore, man, the universe is man. Man is the universe. The cheson and shlemus in you is the cheson and shlemus of the bria. Why? Because it's in you. And even physicists recognize that it is consciousness, that the universe exists because man will see it later on. I mean, wow, that's beyond belief, you see. And many scientists believe that. Okay? Therefore, that's what he means. Okay, well, we only did 3 lines.
I was walking by.
Yeah, so anyway, next week we same 10:15. Here, again, Tuesday night.